Hello and welcome to this episode of Leading with Pride series in partnership with Fairer Consulting. I'm Amanda Witcher and I'm the UK and Ireland Director for our technology business here at Hayes. I'm delighted to be joined by Callum, who's going to share a little bit around his story today. Can I ask you to introduce yourself, Callum?
Certainly, lovely to meet you. Thank you for being here. I'm Callum Stridgeon, use he, him pronouns. I'm 26 and I currently work at Natwest Group. And I'm one of the co-chairs of our global LGBT+ employee-led network. I've been involved in that network for around about 4 years or so, and delighted to be here to talk a little bit about that work.
Thank you. And it'd be great just to share a bit more around your sort of journey. I know we were speaking earlier and obviously you've got a bit of background in terms of supporting communities, mental health, and then obviously more recently working in the digital and technology world.
Yes, certainly. So I studied at Newcastle University. When I was at Newcastle, I was involved with a great organisation called Citizens UK, and they are an organisation that specialise in community action, social justice campaigns, and they were sort of central to their work that they do is bringing to life personal stories, equipping people with the tools that they need to be able to tackle challenges that they face, rather than having stuff sort of done to them. So I was quite readily involved with that organisation during my time at Newcastle. I've always had quite a desire and a fire within me to sort of look at how I can support others and tackle injustice when I see it. And I think that stems from sort of my own personal experiences as a gay man, and coming to grips with, you know, my own identity and how I accepted that. And then that's kind of taken itself through with me throughout university and then into my career. Started with Natwest Group in, I think it was 2019 when I left university. And I've worked in various capacities to come up with great new propositions to help customers manage the money. But I'm delighted to be one of the chairs for our Rainbow Network, which is all about, you know, how we support colleagues and how we equip colleagues with the safety and the space to be able to bring the best selves to work as well.
I think it's fascinating. I know when we were obviously speaking earlier, we were talking about the fact that you didn't set out on a career in technology within itself is obviously interesting, but also in terms of, I guess, you as an individual have always had that supportive nature around you. And I know one of the things in terms of the Rainbow Network that you've got in Natwest is something that you're really proud of. And I think it'd be great to share with the listeners and viewers today, just in terms of the impact that network had on you and what led you to really move into the role that you play today in that. Yeah,
certainly. So I came out, and we'll get onto that in a minute when I talk about that, but I came out when I was 21. I was very new to my career. I was sort of, university, as it sort of typically is for a number of queer people, was really my time to understand who I was. It was my, you know, time away from family. It was my independent new life. And for me, that sort of university experience was defined by my coming out period. When I started work, though, I felt like I kind of took a step back, and not necessarily because anybody ever made me feel that I should, but as queer people we grow up with this sense of internalised worry about what might happen if I tell other people that I'm queer or part of the LGBT+ community. So when I first started work, I sort of internalised a lot of that. I would admittedly lie about my partner. I wouldn't tell them if I had a partner. Colleagues would ask questions and I was so nervous to kind of navigate that situation that I just really hid that side of me away. And then through getting involved with the Rainbow Network at Natwest Group, it's really been a fundamental part, not of just my professional career, but personally, you know, I can genuinely hand on heart say without that involvement in the Rainbow Network at Natwest, I wouldn't be the same sort of out queer guy that I am today. And I think that's testament, and I know we were chatting about this before, to the importance of role models, really. You know, throughout my time at Natwest, I've been working with some fantastically brave and articulate and honest and open LGBT+ people. And when I first started my career, I looked at those people and I thought, wow, like you can sit there and tell your story so bravely and authentically to other people, and you're willing to put yourself out there in a way that helps others. And those people were fundamental to my own story and my own journey to come into sort of self-acceptance. So for me, it's, you know, networks in any organisation are such a fundamental part of ensuring that diversity, equity and inclusion is really at the heart of what you do. But fundamentally, it's personally powerful. It gives you a space to feel welcome and to be accepted. And for me, that's, you know, that's strung out in my involvement. And as I've kind of worked my way through the network, I've really been an advocate for trying to then model those role models that helped me. I know how powerful that experience was when I was trying to come to sort of that place of self-discovery. And now in my work, I try to be as much as I can that role model for others as well. So it's a really powerful professional and personal network of people to be involved in.
It sounds like it's been hugely inspiring and empowering for you, and I think some of the key takeaways from that for, I guess, people listening today are, you know, sometimes in our heads we build up something to be a certain way, but the reality of it can sometimes look quite different, which obviously is the case for you, where you talked about actually, you know, you couldn't necessarily accept yourself, but actually when you did, those around you really accepted you for who you are. And I think that's obviously a credit for the company that you also work for as well. I think some of the other things that you talked about, you know, I guess in terms of role models and the importance of role models, when we look at organisations, and I guess to a certain degree, what are some of the challenges or things that they can do to support their communities? And obviously the Rainbow Network that you've got in Natwest is a great example of that. Is there any other sort of tips and advice that you'd sort of give organisations?
In the context of my sort of workplace, I'm very fortunate that we've got a really great membership base for our Rainbow Network. Around about sort of 2,000 colleagues are engaged. You know, and that's a mix of people who've got direct experience of being part of the LGBT plus community. It's maybe parents who've got themselves kids who are LGBT plus or have some sort of connection. And I think for me, you know, we're fortunate because that means that I can leverage that group of people to really be driving forwards powerful campaigns, for pushing forward messages and for really sort of bringing to life stories and experiences. I think I am also acutely aware that there are others in organisations that maybe are slightly smaller who may be frustrated because they can't feel like they're making an impact, or that they're not kind of getting things off the ground, or things aren't going the way they want to as such. And I guess my advice to those people would be, no matter how much you want to try and drive forward those fantastic policy changes which are, you know, fundamental to challenging systemic inequality, never underestimate the real value and power that giving a psychological safe space to another queer person has. You know, if someone comes up to you and says, you know, I'm gay and I'm not comfortable to be out at work, then as far as I'm concerned, that's the most powerful piece of work that you could ever do. Providing safety, providing other role models in your organisation that can be that safe space and that beacon for hope at a time which might be so personally challenging. That's the most powerful thing that you could do. So I think no matter how big or small your organisation is, never underestimate the real power that sits behind those types of exchanges and interactions.
I think that's a really important point, because actually, you know, quite often the things that are unseen is the impact you may have on someone. So you as a role model for people that you potentially work with or in your life in general, you would not always necessarily aware of the impact that you have, because they don't come over and say to you, Callum, this is what you changed in my life. But actually, I think through creating those role models, but as you say, giving that safe space, actually the impact that has on people is far greater than we often understand. So I think that's definitely some great advice. And I know one of the other things that we were talking about is around that inclusivity piece. You know, talking about diversity as a stat isn't enough. And actually to get true diversity, if you are inclusive as an organisation, that diversity will come. So again, any sort of views that you've got in terms of how people can support better or create more inclusive, empowering environments for the organisations they work in?
Certainly. I think policy change is a fundamental way of helping to address systemic inequality, in my opinion. So working with senior leaders in your organisation to think about actually a trans person could really benefit from a policy that helps them to take time off work when they're transitioning, for example. A policy which allows people to work from an alternative location because a queer person might not be safe at home if they live with parents who aren't accepting. Those are the real ways in which we can systemically create change and provide people with organisational support that helps them to sort of really fundamentally bring themselves to work and feel supported. I also think, and particularly from an LGBT plus lens, the LGBT plus world and community is so diverse in itself, and intersectionality is such a huge part of that. You know, the experiences of myself as a cisgendered white man will be very different from somebody else. You know, for a queer person of colour, for example, their experiences will be very different to mine, and there will be differences in what support I need versus what support they may need to be able to be on a level playing field when it comes to gender, sexual orientation, race, for example. So I think a recognition that, and I think that's where the equity piece comes into it really. It's not just about giving everybody a leg up. It's about a recognition that actually some people are actually already 2 steps behind, and simply because of one factor I'm already 2 steps ahead. So it has to really be a recognition that there are things we need to do to give other people the same equal chances to get to where they need to get to. And I think that's that a part of that is really being self-reflective as a network for me. So thinking about, you know, why are women, for example, in the LGBT plus community more disproportionately underrepresented? You know, what can we do as a network to really ensure that we empower women to feel included? So I think it's thinking about everything holistically and what great work we can do, but it's recognising that everybody needs a different starter really to get to where they deserve to get to.
And again, I think that's a really important point, because I think, you know, we were talking about this again earlier, that, you know, to truly be inclusive, we actually need to play to different people's strengths, their abilities, and actually everyone is unique, and we need to start treating our employees as unique individuals and support them in the way that they need to be supported as well. I think it's fascinating just in terms of, I think, everything that you've talked through today, and that there was something that you mentioned earlier that I really wanted to pick up on, because I think it'd be really useful for the listeners and viewers today is, you know, one of the things that you mentioned is that, you know, sometimes it feels like you come out every day with every new conversation that you have, and sometimes understanding some of that stuff, I think, is important.
Yeah, certainly. It's sort of a common phrase, I think, for LGBT plus people. Maybe we don't say it enough and we don't realise it, but we often think that coming out is a linear process. You know, as I described before, you go to university, you get your independence, you meet queer people, and then you come out, and then it's the end, and you never have to do it again. Queer people never stop coming out. You know, every time you meet a new boss at work, you've got to make a decision, a split decision about, am I comfortable? You've got to make a decision, if I tell this person and maybe they've got some less favourable views, shall we say, is that going to impact my career prospects for me as well? When you are meeting new friends, you've got to determine whether or not you feel comfortable to tell them that you're, you know, bisexual or that you're trans. So queer people never stop that journey. And that is hugely personally taxing. Like, that's tough to have to navigate that scenario every time. And I think my call to allies and people that maybe don't have those experiences would be just to be really sort of sympathetic and conscious of the way we talk about things. And it's little things, you know, it's considering when you ask someone if they've got a girlfriend or boyfriend, well, why not ask if they've got a partner? It's a really small change that we can make to our language that can have a really powerful impact for other people. So, hopefully I've kind of spoken about some of the great big things that you can do, but I think there is such power in language and the way we use language and the safe space that creates. So really allowing other people to feel welcome by adapting our language and helping others to feel supported. And again, coming back to that piece of how other people in other organisations can support, just starting from that space, you know. Yeah. If you can create that space for other people, then you're onto a winner.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's about creating that awareness and understanding that not everyone will necessarily know about today. So I think that's great. Thank you so much for sharing. It's fascinating to meet you. I've really enjoyed it. And I'm sure all the listeners will really appreciate all the insights you've shared today. Thank you, Callum.
Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you for watching or listening. We hope you enjoyed the conversation today. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel for more episodes or via Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you would like further information or pointers on what's been discussed today, please visit our Hayes UK and Ireland website or faireconsulting.com.